All right. So thank you again, Leela, and welcome everyone to the 2021 virtual VuFind Summit. And I'm going to start us off with the traditional state of the project talk. I'm Damian Katz. I'm the Director of Library Technology at Falvey Memorial Library at Villanova University. I'm also VuFind's Community Manager and have been for quite a while. So let's start off by talking about what is new with VuFind. First of all, since our last summit, we've had 4 releases, 7.1, a feature release, 8.0, a new major release, and a couple of bug fixes in between. Some things that have changed have included updates to dependencies because technology just keeps evolving. So as of version 8, VuFind now requires PHP 7.3, and if you're using a MySQL or MariaDB database, these particular versions, 5.7.7 for MySQL or 10.2.2 for MariaDB. And this is just, to encourage people to use supported versions of software, since older versions of these things are no longer in support and may have security holes. Additionally, as of VuFind 8, we now have Solar 8 bundled in, the most recent major Solar version, unless they've released 9 in the last couple of days. We also have some new and improved features. Probably the biggest single new feature we've introduced is something called record versions, which came in VuFind 7.1. And this is a mechanism for linking together different editions or other variations of works. It's a fairly flexible and configurable system. It helps to meet some of the need of guiding your patrons to alternate forms of things when you have a lot of related works in your index. We've also added a CSV import tool. So if you have comma-separated value files that you would like to index into your VuFind instance, that's now possible. There's a structured way to do that. We've also done some sort of low-level architectural improvements to VuFind search system, which should make it easier to extend and customize in the future. I actually recorded a video about this at the last VuFind community call, and that recording is posted in the VuFind wiki and the videos page. So if you want to learn more specifically about the search system changes, you can find it there. And of course, those are just some of the really big highlights. There are lots and lots of new configuration settings, smaller features, integrations with other systems. And you can always find out what's new and different in VuFind releases by looking at the changelog on our wiki, which contains very detailed notes on everything that's new with every release. So it's not just the software that has gone through some changes. There's also the community around the software. A lot of time and effort has gone into improving our community and ensuring the sustainability of the project. Perhaps most significantly, the project now has a formal documented governance model, which I'll share a link to a little later. And we've introduced a project management committee, which is a group of community members that meets on a monthly basis and is able to make decisions about the direction of the project. For many years, I was sort of the one-person project leadership team, and that's not a very sustainable approach. So a number of people with great experience working on the project have come together to form this committee, and I'm serving as the community manager. But the goal here is that things don't have to depend on me, though I certainly plan to continue to devote a lot of time and effort to supporting the project. I've already mentioned community call videos, but this is another item that's continued to grow. Every month we record a new tutorial video as part of our regular community call, and we're putting together a library of these, which you can find through the VuFind website or on YouTube. So if you want to learn about VuFind, there are a lot of guided tutorials to show you how to install and configure and use it. And at this point, we've covered so much that we even have some videos getting into some fairly advanced technical topics like code generation and writing tests. There are also a number of ongoing training programs related to VuFind being coordinated by our partners at HealthNet Nepal. You'll hear more about those throughout the course of the summit. But again, if you're looking to learn about VuFind and some related tools, there are opportunities to do that in a structured way. Also on the subject of education, I wrote a book called Learning VuFind, which has a lot of the same content as the video tutorials, but it provides a structured introduction to VuFind from installation through configuration, administration, customization. So if you're new to VuFind and you want to learn how to use it, this book is a great way to start, especially if you like learning things from a book. And it is completely free. It's open content. You can download it through the documentation page of vufind.org. And I plan to do my best to keep it up to date as things evolve. Another piece of news, you've probably noticed the little rights reserved symbol next to the VuFind name all over the place. And this is because VuFind's name is now trademarked. And it might seem a little strange to trademark the name of an open source project. It might even seem counter to being open. But the reason we've done this is not to put any restrictions on VuFind, but simply to protect the integrity of the project. There have been some other open source projects that have found their names raised in trademark conflicts and have been forced to rename. And renaming an open source project is a really painful and time-consuming process, which we don't want to have to go through. So we trademark the name to be sure that, we are clear to use it, there are no conflicts there, and that just protects our identity and keeps our time focused on improving the software rather than getting distracted by having to rename it. And of course, there's also a lot more community planning being done. There's a wonderful project called It Takes a Village out of Lyrasis, which is sort of a set of guidelines and recommendations for open source sustainability. And VuFind was fortunate enough to be a participant in the beta program for the It Takes a Village toolkit, which is a set of sort of structured activities and exercises that communities can work through in order to improve their governance and other community infrastructure. So we did some of this earlier this year. We're going to do another round of it probably in January or early February. And it's just been really helpful for figuring out where we can improve and coming up with plans for the future. So if you have an open source project of your own, I encourage you to take a look at It Takes a Village. And if you're just here to learn about VuFind, be assured that we have a lot of ideas coming down the road, thanks in part to this project. So I've talked about what's new and a little bit about what's coming, but let's say more about the future. We have, of course, our usual release schedule of a feature release followed by a major release. Things were a little bit delayed this year. VuFind 8 came out perhaps a little later than past major releases. So I'm thinking that probably VuFind 8.1 will be ready mid-2022. And in terms of new features, the main thing that we're going to be focusing on there is trying to get a beta version of a new theme. I realize if you've been attending these summits that we've been talking about new theme for 2 or 3 years now, and we haven't delivered one yet. We have been doing a lot of behind the scenes planning and tool development to make the new theme possible, but it's complicated and we want to be sure we do it right. So I think we're finally there. So stay tuned for a beta version of the new theme sometime next year. And following that, probably later in 2022 will be our next major release, VuFind 9, which, as is often the case in our major releases, will probably be focused largely on upgrading and modernizing things because, as I mentioned, the technology landscape keeps evolving and we want to ensure that VuFind is up to date and remains relevant. So some of the things we're going to be doing are replacing some PHP components from the Laminas ecosystem that have been deprecated, particularly the way VuFind connects to databases and does HTTP transactions. We're going to have to replace those with some more modern and well-maintained libraries. It also looks like some of the Solr features that we've been using for 10 years or more have been replaced by newer things, particularly the way we retrieve facet information in search results. So we're going to need to look at how VuFind talks to Solr and do some modernization there. Also, if we have our beta theme in 8.1, we will make it official in 9.0. So again, next year really will be the year of the new VuFind theme. So that's something to look forward to. And of course, other features. One of the purposes of this summit is to bring people together to do some planning for what's to come. So I've talked about things that I think are absolutely critical and that will be high priorities, but there's plenty of room for more things to go into these releases. So, later in this week, we'll be talking about the roadmap and contributions from community members, and that will help to determine what else will be coming. So what else is new on the community front? Another thing I've been talking about for a couple of years is getting VuFind out of Villanova University, which has been its home for many years, and into a nonprofit organization that makes it easier for the whole VuFind community to come together around the project. Again, Villanova remains committed to this project and will continue to contribute time and resources to it. But for sustainability purposes, it seems better to not tie this international project to just one university. So we're looking to find a more sustainable home. And that home is very likely to be the Open Library Foundation, which has been a great partner to us for some time now, even though our partnership is not entirely official yet. So we have made some significant progress on all of this since last year. We're working toward establishing the VuFind community as an independent organization with the help of the OLF. And one of the starts of this is to fill some key roles, and members of the project management committee have volunteered to do this. So as I mentioned, I'm the project manager, but we also have Hayo Sang as our treasurer and Mohan Raj Pradhan as our secretary. So having these roles filled will help with the setup of the formal legal entity that will represent VuFind. And in terms of succession planning, as I mentioned, we have a governance document which explains how our community works, how people can sort of rise through the system and gain roles of increasing responsibility. So if you're interested in becoming more engaged with the project, I encourage you to take a look at our governance document, and that will tell you some of the things you can do to help ensure the success and sustainability of VuFind. But there's still more to do. So what's coming up? There are some legal details to get through regarding the establishment of VuFind as its own nonprofit, as a subsidiary of the Open Library Foundation. We're working through that process, but it's complex. We also need to raise some funds because, as I mentioned, apart from occasional donations, for which we are, of course, most grateful, Villanova has done the majority of resourcing for this project. And while Villanova plans to continue supporting it, we're hoping that some other members of the community can also join in, because once we are an independent organization, we'll have a few more expenses just to maintain ourselves, and it would be great for that support to be shared amongst many members of the community. The project management committee has developed a proposed membership model where there are varying levels of support with different types of benefits. We just need to market this a bit more. So this is sort of the heads up that we will be doing some fundraising in the coming year. So if you think that your organization could help, please encourage them to do so and stay tuned for more details. And finally, there's going to be a community survey going out very soon to learn more about how people are using discovery systems and what they would like to see, which will help us again to plan and prioritize some of our development activities. So I probably will be sharing this survey link later in the summit. Certainly it will go out through VuFind's regular communication channels, our mailing lists, and Twitter pretty soon. So again, if you have time to participate in that, your input would be very valuable. So on to road mapping. As I've already said, one of the key reasons we have this summit is to get together and talk about the future and prioritize what we're doing. So the summit is all leading up to the road mapping session on Wednesday, which I hope you will all participate in. And as we lead up to that, I'd like you to just start thinking about a few things so that you're ready to join that conversation. So first of all, think about the community. As I say, we've done a lot. We've built some useful mechanisms, I think, but there's still more to do. So if there are things you'd like to see from us, particular membership benefits that would be compelling to your institution, better communication channels, changes in the format of some of our events, all suggestions are welcome. Also, are there any features of the software that are missing from VuFind? Pardon me, had an overhead announcement there. So anyway, are there features that VuFind lacks that your institution could use? The road mapping session is a good place to bring attention to missing features. On a related note, have you developed any local customizations that might be useful to others that you'd like to share? Existing code is one of the easiest ways to get a new feature added to VuFind. The community is always happy to work with people to sort of generalize their local code and make it suitable for inclusion in the core project. And if you go through that process, then you have the advantage of not having to maintain your code alone because you now have a whole community joining in with you. I'm also interested to hear about any tutorial documentation or training needs. As I mentioned, the monthly video recordings have gotten quite deep into the project with some fairly technical topics. If you feel there's anything missing from our training library, I'd love to hear about it. I can develop content based on requests, and there may be other members of the community who would also like to share something at a future call. I certainly am not the only person who has done these presentations so far. Another thing to think about is lightning talk ideas. We have a slot on Wednesday for lightning talks, which is an opportunity to give a quick, 5-minute or less talk about something you've done with VuFind or something you'd like to see in VuFind. The lightning talks will be right before the road mapping, so it's a good opportunity to come in with something to spark ideas and conversation. So I would love to see a few people join in and participate in that way. There's a sign up for lightning talks on the conference planning document, which is linked from the Summit wiki page on the website. If you just go to vufind.org, there's a banner at the top of the page right now about the summit. So you can click there and then click on the link to the conference document, put in your name and the topic you'd like to share. And then on Wednesday, we can just bring you in to the panel and you can share your stuff. Another thing to think about is how you can help. VuFind is very much a community activity. We develop the software together, we support the software together. It's largely volunteer driven. And so the more help we can get, the better. So if you are relatively new to the community, but you'd like to give back, think about what you might be able to do because we'd love to have your assistance. If you are a coder, of course, there's always lots of coding work to do. But if you are not, there are other things you can do as well, reviewing and updating documentation, helping with support, Even small things like cleaning up the video transcripts on our tutorials page to help make them more accessible. Any little bit helps. We always appreciate support from our own community, and we're happy to talk to you and make it easier to help as well. So that's the state of the project for now, and I once again welcome you all to the summit. We have a lot of interesting talks today about various aspects of VuFind. If you're new and you're not sure why you're here or what's going on, as I mentioned, there's that Learning VuFind book, and there are tutorial videos on the VuFind website. So you're certainly free to drop out of here for a little bit, take a view of that, and come back. Well, we're here 3 days this week. And I have some useful links up here on the screen, the VuFind website, the summit page with the link to the conference planning document, my email address. You are more than welcome to reach out to me at any time if you want to ask a question about VuFind or if there's anything else I can do for you. And we also have a Slack community if you like sort of real-time chat, which you're welcome to join. And you can find me there as @DamienKatz. So with that, I've gotten through all of my content. We have about 9 minutes before the next talk begins. So I'm happy to answer some questions or chat a little bit if anyone has anything. You're certainly welcome to either type in the chat below or use the Q&A boxes. If you have an actual question, I would strongly recommend use the Q&A. It makes it easier for us to manage. And if not, I can just wrap this up and we can either take a brief break or move right into the next talk. I see something is coming through on the chat. The question is, which framework is the new theme using? An advanced version of Bootstrap? And I think one of the goals of our new theme is actually to be a bit more framework agnostic so that VuFind can be better incorporated into whatever framework you prefer. And we're doing that by building some tools into VuFind that follow patterns and make it easier to re-implement, because right now our current theme is very tied into Bootstrap 3, which is past end of life at this point and needs to be replaced with something. But we don't want to get caught on an endless treadmill of keeping up with a particular technology if there's not a strong reason to. And I think maybe if I can put Chris on the spot, he's been doing much of the work on planning and developing this, so maybe he can say something more coherent than that.
Yeah, no, Damien has it basically right, is that we're trying to make it as framework agnostic as possible, but the plan is to have mix-ins or themes or different versions of it that branch from there to leverage different frameworks. So if you really like Bootstrap as a base, you can use that, but also other ones like Foundation or Primer or Tailwind CSS, trying to make it so that we're not directly tied into any frameworks, which has slowed down development in the past. And also, I seem to be cursed that every time I use a Bootstrap version, the next one's right around the corner. So if I built it in Bootstrap 5 right now, I guarantee Bootstrap 6 would be released in February. So getting away from being dependent on a framework, but also making sure that we don't lose all of the good stuff that comes with using a framework. So thank you.
And just to give a sort of a small example of the type of thing we're talking about here, there's work in progress, and actually some of this work is already included in release 8 to create a new icon helper for VuFind's themes. So as you may know, if you've worked with our themes, we use Font Awesome for our icons. And so there are Font Awesome classes scattered all over the code, which is great as long as Font Awesome continues to be the thing we want to use, but in the future could become a point of pain if that project were to stop being supported or there was some compelling reason to use something else. So what Chris has been working on is this icon helper where instead of directly embedding code with Font Awesome specific CSS, we just say icon and the name of an icon, and then a view helper plugs in the actual HTML for that icon. This makes everything a little bit more abstract, but also completely configurable. So for now, we can just configure all of our icons to use the same Font Awesome classes they're currently using. But now all of the Font Awesome specific logic is centralized in one configuration. You know, the map that says these icons use these Font Awesome icons. It makes it really easy to reconfigure an icon system-wide. So if you don't like one of our icon choices, you can replace it through a configuration instead of having to potentially edit many templates. And it means we could get rid of Font Awesome entirely without having to change any of our template code. It's all configuration driven. And I think that type of pattern is really valuable, and that's the direction we're hoping to head. And I see someone has sent thank yous through the Q&A. Thank you. I'm happy that you are here. And with that, we have about 3.5 more minutes. If anyone has anything else they would like to hear more about.
I just want to take the opportunity to let you know that we are watching for questions and comments and thank yous and suggestions on the Slack. There is a Summit 2021 channel in the chat on Zoom, in the Q&A on Zoom. And also there is a Twitter hashtag that I'll be checking periodically. So there's plenty of ways to get questions and comments to us. And I am personally in charge of making sure that they are heard and read. So
I should also ask, do we have a Slack registration link we can share if people are not on Slack but want to be, or do we share an email address for them to reach out to for that?
That is an excellent idea. I will put one in the Google Doc right now, and I'll also post it into the chat.
Thank you, Chris. And while we are at it, I will also just paste into the chat my email address from the slide. So if anybody needs it, they can copy and paste it from there. And also the link to VuFind.org, which you can click on. And as I mentioned, if you want to look specifically at the Summit page, there's a handy banner for that. So last call for further comments or questions. And if that is all, I will stop sharing and turn things over to Mario Trojan for the next talk. Give him an extra minute or two in case he needs them.